Sunday school teacher talking to a class of 6-year-olds, was talking about the Bible, talking about the powerful kings and queens in the Bible, and asked the class, but who's more powerful than the kings and queens? One kid shouts out, aces. So I want to talk to you today about giving your blessing, which that song, Perfect, is a perfect example of giving a blessing. You know, there are people in the world, there are people you run into every day who you don't know what's going on with them. They could be hurting inside. Hold on. Thank you for that reminder. Hold on. We'll do it next week. All right, Nick, I'm bound to remember that sooner or later. Go ahead. You don't know how they're hurting. You don't know what's going on with them. But you don't know the impact your words could have on them. When you speak to them, what you say can lift them up. So I looked up, you know how I do this, I look up the word. So I looked up blessing. And it's the original meaning is a gift from God, a spiritual benefit to speak well of, to praise, and originally done with the sprinkling of blood. Well, we're not going to do that part here today. We'll keep the blood part out of it. And then I looked at, because that got me thinking of how we always say bless you when somebody sneezes. And it turns out that back in 77 AD is the earliest mention of bless you when somebody sneezes. That's only one generation after Christ. And it turns out it was because they were afraid that when you sneezed, your soul was going to leave the body. Now, they had good reason back then to be afraid of that sort of thing because most people who caught a cold died. That isn't the case today. You catch a cold, the odds are you're going to recover. But back then, the rate of recovery was not quite what it is today. We're also talking about an age in where the average lifespan was under 40 years old. So you have this idea of blessing, a gift from God. And I noticed that when we get, we get busy, right? We get busy with our lives. We think something well about somebody. Maybe you're sitting there thinking how great the music is, but you're in a rush to get out of here at the end of the service and don't think you don't have the time to give your blessing. Because it doesn't take a lot. Giving your blessing, a gift from God, is simply a compliment, a kindness, something you say, but when you keep it to yourself, when you keep it inside, you're not giving your blessing. They may feel good energy from you, but that's like thinking they can read your mind. You actually have to say it. Now, I personally was never very good at this. I always thought that it was really more about what you did than what you said. And so when I first got together with Ash, I would go around doing all these things to show her I loved her. And then keep hearing about how she didn't feel loved. Drive me crazy. I'm like, what do you mean you don't feel loved? I'm doing all these things. And she'd go, no, I don't feel loved. And then I realized I wasn't giving her my blessing. I wasn't actually saying, I love you. I wasn't actually saying, you look gorgeous today. And so I started doing that. And I noticed then all of a sudden she started feeling loved. I took the time to notice, and now I make sure almost every single day I tell her that I love her and how beautiful she is. And it's so easy to do that in today's world because you can even text it. You could be busy and you could even text it. And I realized that actually works. Because then it's come out and I've done that and there it is and she feels loved. And that's what can happen in your life. If you feel busy, you can actually text it or whatever. Just make sure you take the time, wake up every day. My son, I was talking to my son And he said how much he appreciated the fact that his mom and me didn't really harp on his choices, but simply kept telling him what a great guy he was, how powerful he was, and how we believed in him and how he could do the things that he needed to do in his life. And he really, really appreciated that about us. And I thought, yeah, you can bless somebody by telling them what a good job they're doing, but they're actually even more blessed if you tell them what a good person they are. If you tell them how beautiful they are. Just this morning, Ash was asking me where her music book was. And I am not a guy who's very good at multitasking. So I'm like, find the book. And all of a sudden, Ash is getting ready to leave, and I'm still in, find the book. And she goes, you haven't told me I look beautiful this morning yet. It's important to remember those things. And I like getting the reminder, oh yeah, that's really important. That's actually important to do that sort of thing. I grew up, my mom, this may be a shock to some of you, but I was a wild child. Yeah. And I was so wild and my mom, in great humor, will tell you about that today. But I can promise you, when I was growing up, there was not a lot of humor around it. That I grew up in a household where I was constantly told what I was doing was wrong. My siblings were scared of me. My peers were constantly telling me that there must be something wrong with me. And my teachers would constantly tell me that there must be something wrong with me. By the time I was 14, I so much believed that, I tried to commit suicide. And it took anyone who has felt like the black sheep, an outcast, or been told multiple times that they are less than, knows the power of words, knows what it feels like to be put down that way, and so should know what it would feel like to be uplifted. At 17, I got out of there. 16, I got out of there. Found my own way in the world and started to look for folks who actually liked me, who wanted to say good, nice things about me, and would begin to lift me up, leading to finding a Science of Mind center where I got lots of people telling me all the time that they believed in me and lifted me up to the point where I became the music director. And then obviously, here I am before you as the minister, because it's really fun to hang around people who actually will give you their blessing. So you want to give your blessing. You want to give what it is you have to give because it lifts people up. You may think, oh, I'm shy. I don't really have that to offer. No, I tell you right now that you have everything you need. You are God incarnate. You could say, who am I to be giving somebody a blessing? And I'd say you are God. You are the gift of God. You are as holy as anyone on the planet to give a blessing, and you deserve a blessing. Because the other piece of this is the more we give blessings, the more we are receiving those blessings that we are giving. So it's really important to be giving blessings because that's how we can receive them. And we never know. You just never know how it's going to strike somebody, what it's going to do for them. I heard the story of a celebrity walking down the street, passes a woman, and all of a sudden stops her, looks her in the eye and says, "You are so beautiful," and then walks on. The celebrity didn't know that this person was in the middle of a divorce, felt ugly as all get out, was having a custody battle with her kids, did not have a job, did not even know where she was going to be living, was at the lowest point in her life when that happened. Celebrity didn't know that. That woman used that moment every time she felt down to lift herself up, to remind herself. She'd replay that moment over and over and over in her head, to lift herself up to where she got through all that, put together a new life, got her kids, got a job, got into a new relationship years later, and came back and actually wrote that celebrity note saying, this is what that one simple thing you did for me, the impact it had on my life. We don't know the impact we could have on somebody's life. You don't have to be a celebrity to have that kind of impact on somebody's life. You're God. You are the essence of God. It's a good idea to be actually looking out for ways we can imagine waking up and ringing, who can I bless today? You certainly want to start with your family. You want to give blessings to everyone in your household. Right? You don't want to be in a situation where somebody else is complimenting your spouse more than you are. You don't want to be in a situation where a teacher, coach, or neighbor is complimenting your son or daughter more than you are. You want to be the one bringing that blessing to your family. You want to be the one bringing the blessing to anyone you come in contact with. You know, it has occurred to me that when we get an idea in our head that we like something somebody did or we like something about somebody, that's our higher self telling us it's time to give a blessing. So if you're shy and you don't do it, you have missed an opportunity that your higher self was leading you to that could have changed somebody's life and could have changed your own. I heard a story about, before I get into that story, I want to tell you about some of the other things that this has led me to. I've got a great story to finish up with, but I want to tell you about these other things too. We have this guy here, Gabriel, and he cleans this place for us. And he maintains it, gives us a good place to, feel good about Sunday in the sanctuary, in the bathrooms. He goes downstairs, he cleans up downstairs. And what I noticed is the only time I ever called him was when something wasn't done. And finally, I recognized that and called him and said, I am not calling to tell you what wasn't done. I'm really sorry that's all I've done up to now. I want you to know how much we appreciate that you're here, that I appreciate that you come here and you do the job you do, that actually you do a great job, and I'm very blessed that you show up. I gave him my blessing. And he, the next time he showed up here, grabbed me in his arms and said, nobody ever does that. Nobody ever calls to thank me. They only call to tell me what I didn't do. Thank you for calling and doing that. 2 days later, I went downstairs to the management company at our where my wife and I live. And I went into the office because, again, the only time I ever call those guys is when I need something fixed in the apartment or there's a problem in the hallways or this and that. And I walked in there and once again just thanked them for the job they're doing and the maintenance and the upkeep they do to the building. I gave them my blessing, and in doing so, they were incredibly moved. They said, nobody ever does that. We only hear from people about what's wrong. So look around in your life and see who you might call just to say thank you. You don't know the impact it could have on their life, and then by having that impact on their life, the impact it could have on somebody else's life. I look in the mirror sometimes and tears come to my eyes, thinking how I got from where I was to here would never have happened if I hadn't found folks who were so supportive, who spoke to me so highly, who reminded me who I truly was, who blessed me. That those blessings have gotten me to where I am today. Sure, we're in a teaching where we have the power within us to rise up, to rise above, to be greater than. We actually have that within us. But part of that is creating a life surrounding ourselves with people who really want to support us, who really want to say, you're doing great. I love you. I encourage you. And it starts with us doing that with others. There is no one around you in your life who doesn't need a blessing. We all do. And I love Christ's teaching around especially those you don't like, especially those you're mad at. The toughest teaching he ever taught was turning to your enemy and loving them like a friend. And yet is the most powerful thing he taught. That's what's possible. We have this. We are God beings. We offer our gift of God every time we give the smallest of compliments to somebody, the little bit of kindness. So now I'll tell you this great story. Joel Osteen told this story, and I loved it. He said he used to play basketball when he was in his 20s. And there was this guy who'd show up named Bo. And Bo was grumpy, never wanted to interact, very antisocial. And everybody else there who played basically ignored him. They just played basketball, never interacted with him. But something in him moved him to want to say to this person, hi, learned his name, Bo, and said, hi, Bo, I'm glad you're here. That was it. And Bo would hit his chest twice, and Joel didn't know what that meant, but he'd hit his chest twice too, and then they'd go play basketball. After a while, Joel stopped playing because things got too busy at the church. 20 years later, in the line, comes up to him this man with his family and says, hi, I'm Bo. You didn't know this back then, but I was homeless. Nobody wanted me. And one of the reasons I came to play basketball was just to hear you say, I'm glad you're here. And knowing that you said that helped me be the first one in my family to ever graduate high school, to ever go to college, and to have a family that stayed together and built a life. And it all started with you simply saying, I'm glad you're here. That's what's possible for us in the simplest of things. That's what we can bring to life in simply telling somebody, I'm glad you're here. Reach out. Reach out to the ones you love. Reach out to those who live far away, who you keep thinking about calling but haven't. Reach out to the person at the grocery store. Reach out to the person at the teller behind the counter at the bank. It doesn't matter. A tiny kindness can change a life. That's what's possible here. Thank you. All right. So in the line of blessings, everybody stay where you are. Just stay where you are. In the line of blessings, we have a couple we're going to be doing today. The first is for the fathers. Okay? Anyone who's a dad, you don't have to get up, just put up your hand so we know who you are. Anybody who's guardianed as a dad? Anyone who's, any guy here, any mother who's been a father? All right. Everybody else, I want you to look around and see who they are and raise your hands. And know for them. Know for them the perfection of the life they brought into this world, they guardian into this world. Know for them the gift that they gave as dad. And their brilliance in being willing to stand in that place as dad. And so it is. Al Sid, will you come on up to the... we have a second one. I learned this is great Gay Pride Month. And so as I like to do, I did some research. So what we're going to do now is honor those who got us here, who got us to where we have a Gay Pride Month. Henry Gerber In 1924, a German immigrant founded a Chicago Society for Human Rights, the first documented gay organization in the United States. Fought for gay rights right up to his death, in his 80s. Harry Hay, in 1950, founded the Mattachine Foundation, one of the nation's first gay rights groups. Dale Jennings, in 1952, formed an organization called One Inc., which welcomed women and published One, the country's first pro-gay magazine. George William Jorgensen, in the 1950s, underwent sex reassignment surgery in Denmark to become Christine Jorgensen, and was not afraid to say it. In 1955, the publication of the Mattachine Review, the second gay publication, happened. In 1958, One Inc. won a lawsuit against the U.S. Post Office, which in 1954 declared the magazine obscene and refused to deliver it. One Inc. won that lawsuit and made them deliver that magazine. In 1966, members of the Mattachine Society in New York City staged a sit-in, a twist on sit-in, protests of the 1960s in which they visited taverns, declared themselves gay, and waited to be turned away so they could sue. They were denied service at the Greenwich Village Tavern Julius, resulting in much publicity and a quick reversal of the anti-gay liquor laws. June 28, 1969, New York City police raided the Stonewall Inn. Fed up with years of police harassment, patrons and neighborhood residents began throwing objects at the police as they loaded the arrested into paddy wagons. The scene eventually exploded into full-blown riot with subsequent protests and lasted for more than 5 days. Harvey Milk, who campaigned on pro-gay rights platform, became the first San Francisco city supervisor in 1978, becoming the first openly gay man elected to a political office. These are the men who were willing to stand up for gay rights, to where now gay men get to get married, get to have all the rights that anybody, that is their birthright. That should have never been an issue. Like women's rights should have never been an issue, but was. And so I bless these men, these moments. Bless them with me. Raise your hand and know that this is what has gotten us here today. To a more open society that sometimes seems less, but is actually growing. Through a more tolerant society and accepting society, even though sometimes it seems less. To a more loving society, even sometimes it seems less. Because we can know that, and we can hold that, and stand on the shoulders of the giants who walked before us. And so it is. All right. Take out what you're going to give. Hold it in your hand. Hold it in your hand. Do not crumple it up. This is God in action. This is how we get the law of circulation moving. We hold it in our hands. We know this is God. This is not just some money. This is much bigger than money. This is us, because everything is us. Everything is one. Everything flows into another. This is how we get the law of circulation in motion. So you unfold it, you hold it in your hand, and you say our affirmation together. God is the source of all supply. Money is God in action. What we give, we receive multiplied abundantly. All that God is, I am. And so it is.